Hurricanes just off the coast of Florida. I'm 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins, joined by Chief Meteorologist Lou Turner from First Coast News out of Jacksonville. Lou, we dodged some bullets here.
I'm telling you, we were talking about those forecasts for best case scenarios, and we'll show graphics. Here's the worst case, here's the best case. We are truly in that best case scenario for all parties around the Southeast, but being neighbors here in Florida and talking about those impacts here in Jacksonville, Bobby, it's so much worse it could have been. I'm going to let you level set a little bit what we're seeing. I'll show you some graphics here from around Jacksonville and the surrounding area. Rough surf, coastal impacts is what we've been talking about, Bobby. So why don't you show us kind of those two? You mentioned the two hurricanes. Why don't you show us the very latest when it comes to those storms?
You know, we've had storms close to each other back in the past, but it's been a while.
Sure.
It's been a while since we've had them right off of our coast. And literally, we got to the point this week where one hurricane is literally helping to save us from another hurricane. That's literally what's happening. Humberto, you can see there, that is now just about almost due west of Bermuda. It's actually a little west-northwest. This is the center here. That is moving up and out, but that's helping to lower the pressures here and pull Imelda out. So Imelda has been sitting here. A tough forecast for Imelda, as you know. At one point, it was going to stall up here in the northern Bahamas. Then it was coming further to the north into the Carolinas. The first track from the Hurricane Center had it stalling here, and then 12 hours later it was here, which would have been a huge rainmaker for the Carolinas. And then at that time, some of the models up in this area started taking it out to the east. So then the Hurricane Center forecast changed, the models came around to that, and then just because it's Imelda being Imelda, it actually turned to the east even a little bit sooner than what it was looking like. However, that now means that Imelda, which is strengthening, it's Cat 1 now, is going to be making a beeline for Bermuda by Wednesday. And it looks like actually it will intensify just a little bit. Now, for the Jacksonville area, and we'll talk some specifics here in just a little bit, Imelda is basically wind and some rain for them. We had some showers in the Tampa Bay area here yesterday, but it was just few passing quick showers. That was it. The main rain shield has remained offshore and will remain offshore. Look at the movement right now. East-northeast at 12 miles per hour, okay? That's moving away from the coast, so it's going to take the weather with it. 85-mile-per-hour winds. Now, here's the deal. It's still sitting there, and it is moving away, but the storm itself is getting more organized and getting bigger. And so most of that high wind will stay offshore, but we're going to feel those effects over there on the East Coast, especially in the Jacksonville area, for some time. Right now, the two storms about 510 miles apart. At one point, there was about 485, 486 miles apart as it was coming around that west side of Bermuda. Here's the latest track from Imelda, and you can see as of this, this is the 11 o'clock update. We'll get another one at 5 o'clock. I don't expect much change in the Hurricane Center forecast, but you can see 90-mile-per-hour winds. So it will intensify. 85 now, 95 by tomorrow morning. Wednesday night, Cat 2, 100-mile-per-hour winds, and that is very close to Bermuda. Bermuda has hurricane warnings in effect right now. If that were to happen, they could get 100-mile-per-hour winds. I certainly think they'll see 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts more than anything else, right? Sustained winds a little less than that. And then you can see that it moves out to sea. Forecast models. There is a chance that the center goes a little bit further to the north. At the very end of that line is where Bermuda is located, right, where the island is. And so you can see most of the models are from there to the north, okay? And so that will continue to curve on out and slowly follow on the backside of Humberto. Winds, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. We've got some gusts over there on Daytona Beach. You know what we also have? We have Dr. Rick Knabb from the Weather Channel. Dr. Knabb, great to see you this afternoon. Look, going back to last Thursday, the forecast troubles we've had with this, where is it going? Then to have two so close, are we going to get a Fujiwara effect? So many interesting meteorological things going on with the storm. What are you seeing at this point?
Well, when we look back to last Thursday and Friday, even into Saturday, there was still a lot of spread in the models with regard to Imelda, with regard to how far north it was going to get. And one of the solutions that was on the table as of last Friday was it not making landfall and curving to the east. And we are fortunate in the continental U.S. that is one of the solutions that actually came to fruition. In a similar situation in the future, we might not be so lucky, but we absolutely can thank Humberto for having an influence on slowing Imelda down because it weakened the steering currents, and it has still been doing that, and now both systems are being taken eastward by the mid-latitude troughing. However, Humberto is still having an effect on Imelda because they're close enough, just several hundred miles apart, that there still could be a little bit of a southward nudge on Imelda from Humberto, and that makes the forecast still a little bit uncertain with regard to where exactly Imelda will go relative to Bermuda, because just a few miles can matter in terms of whether or not Bermuda gets the strong side of Imelda or not. But the two systems combined, my goodness, look at that northeasterly flow and the tremendous wave energy that's being sent in terms of swells filling up the entire western Atlantic. So we have remotely generated waves, we have wind waves right near the coastline. Look at that northeasterly flow right into northeastern Florida. So the rip current risk is really high, so is the high surf risk. Beach erosion and coastal flooding for places like North Carolina. But there's still some uncertainty with regard to exactly where Imelda will go relative to Bermuda. Yes, they are a reinforced island in terms of their building codes and their infrastructure, but they still could get the winds of at least a Category 2 hurricane tomorrow, guys.
And the models are trending, a lot of them just to the north of the island, but as you said, if it does slow down enough and it's already east-northeast movement, it has a better shot of actually getting closer and closer to those high winds to Bermuda. Now, the surf, the erosion, now we know we go back just a few years, almost every year really though, Lou, if you look at the Daytona Beach area and northward up towards Flagler, they've had a lot of erosion there. What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, so in fact, we actually have a reporter out in Jax Beach. We've been checking out Fernandina Beach all the way to St. Augustine. We've had a lot of beach renourishment projects here along the beaches of Northeast Florida. That's millions and millions of dollars that get spent on these renourishment projects. Now, not only because of tropical impacts that we're experiencing right now, but it's been a late summer, early fall of the nor'easter here for us. It has been weekend after weekend after weekend of just getting pummeled. In fact, we've had what would be inverted troughs just off our coast later into the summer, earlier into the fall, that have brought even more winds and more wave energy than what we're seeing right now, even with Imelda out there. It's nothing to sneeze about. We're looking at the pier right now. Let's go. I got to show you what they've got. The red flags flying. We mentioned the dangerous rip current risk there. Time lapse from the beach for you, just to kind of show you. Towards the end of this time lapse, interesting. Surfers are absolutely going to be doing their thing. But you see tide coming up, high tide around Jacksonville that we were watching for coastal flood potential. We're seeing high tide levels about a foot to a foot and a half above mean high water. So that's kind of that nuisance flooding. But a lot of people going out and kind of watching between some rain bands that are trying to come on shore. Your main impacts here locally for us, that rip current risk, number one, along with our high surf advisory and that small craft advisory. Just giving you some ground truth now. You mentioned wind conditions. So ours sustained right now out at Mayport. That would be your Jacksonville Beach measuring site. That's at 20 miles an hour sustained out of the north. We've had as high as 25, and if we just look at some gusts, we're getting gusts to 30 at Mayport right now as well. And just for some buoy data, I'm going to get to some of that real-time height, what we're seeing for our seas just near shore. So some of our buoys within a mile to about 15 miles offshore, we're seeing 7 to 8 foot seas. Big shipping channels. You'd think of Bermuda, right? So out of Jacksport, we've got a pretty big shipping lane for supplies that run out to Bermuda, produce running from Jacksonville out to Bermuda. So that absolutely going to be impacted here. Now, Bobby, you mentioned the erosion. It's obviously this micro event, but again, it's been a long, several weeks of northeast winds. These fronts that stall out that we've had kind of an unusual period, the end of the summer and the early fall. Front after front kind of stalling out, bringing us these northeast winds, so that erosion is starting to add up.
It's going to really add up, and it's going to continue with the waves. I mean, we're talking about these storms moving away, and Dr. Knapp, I want to get into that before we go today about do they merge or not, but even as they move away, we're not done with the effects that we're going to feel along the East Coast this week, right?
No, absolutely not, because you have a former Category 5 with Humberto that's just getting larger and larger the farther north it has been getting, and it's been sending waves away from it that have been arriving on the East Coast already, and then you've got strengthening Imelda that's adding to those swells, and the two of them are strengthening the wind. So you have remotely generated waves, you have wind waves that are pushing the ocean toward the coastline, and it's going to take a long time for the western Atlantic to calm down after two big hurricanes have been roaming there for days and days. So the rip current risk is going to continue, and you're still going to have that northeasterly wind into the east coast of Florida, and even after Imelda is getting to the other side of Bermuda. And this problem is going to go all the way up to the state of Maine, all the way through the end of the week. But it is calming down comparatively by the time we get to the weekend. But look at how these two systems go eastward, but look at the big high that is behind it. And, you've got lower pressures in the Caribbean. You're still going to have onshore flow into the entire East Coast Friday into Saturday from North Carolina southward, and then we have to watch for what might develop along yet another boundary in the vicinity of Florida with a wet onshore flow pattern this weekend into next week, guys. The beat goes on, and then the later we get into October, the more we got to watch the Central American gyre, Western Caribbean zone for potential tropical development.
Yeah, and that the models have been kind of sniffing something out there, the ensembles, trying to run a little tracks out there, days, you're talking October 7, 8, 9, I mean, as much as we know about that far out. But that wind is going to continue. We do think that these are both moving away. Dr. Knapp, what are the odds that both the European and the GFS models, and they obviously could be wrong, but they want to merge both Imelda and Humberto? What are the odds of that happening?
Well, this has happened before where tropical systems have gotten close enough that one absorbs the other, but in the process, it's always the case that the stronger system causes the other one to weaken as it is being absorbed. So Humberto is going to be on a weakening trend. So watch, this is just the Euro models. You can see the two systems separate as they're approaching Bermuda, but it looks like most of the energy from Humberto goes out ahead of Imelda.
Yeah.
And so because of how fast they're moving, I don't think one is going to absorb the other. But it has happened before. I did advisors at the Hurricane Center years ago when I had one storm that was larger than the smaller one. The smaller one got weakened, sheared apart, and its remnant got absorbed into the bigger system. But I think Humberto's main circulation will be off to the races.
Yeah, it looks a lot closer to that trough. It's a lot further north, more latitude there, so he can get picked up and taken out. Well, so looking ahead, we look here, and we were talking about that boundary that you were talking about here. The lower pressures down south with that high pressure. Take a look at the rain as this develops over South Florida as we move into Wednesday and then really into Thursday. This is Wednesday afternoon. You see that rain that's there. That is part of what's going to be a stalled boundary. And then for the Tampa area, that will eventually start to drift its way northward. This is Friday afternoon. But what happens is it's October 3rd. We're well, a lot of folks up north are thinking fall. In Florida, we think, well, we wish we could have some fall. This, for us, is almost not quite a summertime pattern, but the dew points are coming back up into the mid-70s. We're getting afternoon showers and thunderstorms. I actually think Thursday and Friday, the dew points will be relatively low. It'll feel comfortable with a nice breeze and a few showers. But then watch as we move through Saturday and into Sunday, that just kind of drifts to the north, takes all that moisture with it, and that stalled frontal boundary is actually drifting north as a warm front and will just kind of fall apart. And then, as Dr. Knapp said, we'll be watching this area over here in the Gulf to see if something wants to develop. And it looks like, luckily for the Tampa area, if it did, it would be moving off towards the west right now. This is the local forecast for Tampa area because, you know, that's this is how we forecast fall this time of year around here is when do we feel at least a little bit less humid. And you can see the dew points dropping as we get into Thursday and Friday. But Saturday, Sunday, and especially even all the way through Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, things get to really start put up that humidity. It's going to feel almost like summertime once again. And then I think it'll probably be towards next weekend that will dry out a little bit. Lou, what are you expecting as we get into Thursday and Friday? That's kind of that secondary shot of wind comes in for you. I mean, as Dr. Knapp said, you're going to have 15 to 25 for a week.
It's at least, Bobby and Rick, it's looking like even this weekend, it could be worse than what we've had the last couple of days as far as how strong these winds are. I mean, take a look at our forecast winds where we've been at 25 top end, getting close to 30-mile-an-hour gusts. I mean, as we get to Thursday, Friday, we're seeing modeling suggest 30 sustained, 35 gusts, and even beyond for coastal Georgia, gusts to nearly 40. All right, so we can't let our guard down for our coastal impacts just because these two systems have moved on, and we're even bumping our rain chances. And Bobby, we got Monday Night Football here. Jags hosting the Chiefs, and those rain chances. We're going to be timing out those rain chances very carefully for everybody who's going to be going to that game because those northeast conditions are going to persist, and it's really, frankly, it's going to take a good fall front to come across and maybe bring us some kind of refreshing winds out of the northwest, but we've got to see a pattern change before we get anything that's going to bring us some beach weather. And it's interesting, we were talking, you talk Humberto and you talk that Fujiwara, the absorption of storms. I get that question, from when I do school talks. What happens when they absorb each other, and how often does something like this happen, And I started looking back in history, and I think one of the more famous occasions of this, because the Atlantic a little more rare than when you would see it in the Pacific, but the Atlantic side, you go back to a famous situation in 1995, where you had two storms really dance around each other, do the whole Fujiwara effect. It was Iris and a storm named Humberto. And we've come full circle. We've got a little historical symmetry here from 1995, and now here we are, 2025. It's pretty wild stuff.
Dr. Knapp, what do you have there? You're showing that trough moving across the northern Atlantic. Is that what's going to pick this up?
Yeah, this is the trough that is going to carry both systems eastward. And again, there's a slight chance that a piece of Humberto, gets absorbed into Imelda as Imelda becomes the bigger system. But they're going to both be taken quickly eastward by this big trough. And then my attention starts to turn not just to another bound, but the upper level high pressure that this weekend and into next week starts to take shape over the Western Caribbean and Yucatan. And that is the beginning of our typical October kind of Central American gyre. Low pressure at the surface, upper level high pressure, and it's just the overall pattern that's starting to take shape. And that's why the Climate Prediction Center, starting a week from now, starting to talk about this zone and the chances going up even more than that when we get into mid-October. This is the hot spot in the month of October, and a lot of these systems can tend to come north, where the conditions are going to remain conducive for more storms in October in the Atlantic Basin, especially in this area.
Yeah, and typical, as you mentioned, Dr. Knapp, this time of the year, I always look at it's just a model, right? But I like to look at the wind shear, knowing that setup, and it looks like at least through about the middle of the month, perhaps, the northern Gulf especially, will be flirting with a little bit of extra wind shear, so hopefully that will help us out, but time will tell. Bottom line is, guys, right, we all know this, everybody at home needs to be prepared all the way through the season, especially through October. One of my kind of rules is to get through Halloween, and we're feeling a little bit better here in Florida, but we're still one of the ones really at risk even all the way through November. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a long forecasting week, that's for sure. Thank you for all your work. We'll see you back here next Tuesday.
And welcome in, folks. That was Are we good to go, Toby?
Yep.
Okay, welcome in, folks. Happy Tuesday to you. Of course, that was Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins, Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner here in Jacksonville, and then Dr. Rich Knapp at the Weather Channel, their daily Tuesday discussion on the tropics. Now we're going to bring it back home, talk a little bit more locally, delve into the real nitty-gritty of what's currently happening outside your work office or outside your car window, your house window, whatever it may be. So, showers kind of making their way onshore right now. Very light for the most part and rather quick moving as well. You see they're pretty sparse and really nothing all too heavy. So right along Highway 301 there in inland Nassau County, pretty much headed straight towards Baldwin. We got a shower there. Another one in southwestern Duval County, moving out of Oakleaf down towards Middleburg and really into the western half of Clay County. We got another quick moving shower there. And we'll continue to watch for some of these tonight. But most of them aren't dropping a whole lot of rain. At the most, it might drop a couple hundredths, maybe a tenth of an inch, but even that I think is pretty generous with regards to the rain chances. So we're going to have a mix of sun and clouds, probably more clouds than sun. It's going to be breezy. We're watching those showers. Gusts out there really only upwards of about 20 to 25, so not terribly windy per se, but kind of the mixture of the breeze, the cloud cover, and a few of those isolated showers kind of streaking their way on in is helping to keep the temperatures down today. So some locations who haven't seen any rain or haven't had as much cloud cover, for example, Waycross, Gainesville, a few degrees warmer, low 80s for you folks, but everywhere else, generally upper 70s, low 80s. Overall, feeling pretty good. Now, I talked about the winds a little bit. Not real gusty out there this evening. Gusts upwards of 20 to 25 through the rest of today. Now, as we head into your Wednesday and especially Thursday, Friday, and into this upcoming weekend, nor'easter conditions are going to set up again with sustained winds out of the northeast, anywhere from about 15 to 20, even 25 miles per hour. Again, that's sustained winds. Gusts could be pushing closer to 30, 35, perhaps 40 in a few isolated spots. So we're not going to be to that point yet tomorrow. You'll notice here, sustained winds through the afternoon, 10 to 15, gusts upwards of 20, maybe 25 miles per hour. But you can almost kind of look off to the northeast, those bright yellow and orange colors. That's going to kind of be sweeping its way in here by the back half of this upcoming week, bringing us some breezier, windier conditions by your Thursday, Friday, and of course for your Saturday and Sunday here across the First Coast as well. Now, with regards to the rain chances, rather slim. Pretty much I-10 southward, but if we're really honing in on it, I think southern St. Johns County, Flagler County, eastern Putnam County really have the best chance to see some rain, and even that might be fairly minimal, which is kind of unfortunate for a lot of folks. We actually desperately need the rain out there for many of us. Jacksonville International Airport specifically has only picked up just under 2 3/4 of an inch of rain here. So notice there, that's over a 4.5 inch rainfall deficit for the entire month, making it the 9th driest month on record, or 9th driest September, I should say, on record for the Jacksonville International Airport. So, the grass getting a little crunchy out there underfoot as you're taking your pup for their morning walk, through your backyard or whatever it may be. So the sprinkler systems have been getting run probably a little bit more so than they typically do during this time of the year. As I mentioned, tomorrow, though, really not a whole lot of rain in the forecast. We're watching more so for those southern and southeastern communities, St. Johns County, Flagler, eastern Putnam, through your Wednesday. Now, as you look ahead to Thursday, we're going to have a little bit of a better chance for some isolated to scattered showers moving their way onshore, and that'll really be the trend as we head into your Friday and the end of the week. Those kind of onshore moving showers, almost waves of showers and moistures to a certain regard, bringing a little bit of some beneficial rainfall to us. So dry skies and sunshine for your Wednesday. The atmospheric moisture flow and those precipitable water values certainly showing that, but that will disappear by Thursday and even more so by Friday and this upcoming weekend. You see those bright to darker greens beginning to creep back in. That's why we're going to have a little bit more moisture around to give rise to more showers. So only about a 20% chance of rain on Wednesday. Temperature is going to be in the low to mid 80s. Low 80s for your Thursday. Few more showers going to be trying to sneak their way in there. And then by Friday, scattered showers, the breeze really picking up again. out of the northeast, 10 to 20 miles per hour. Gusts could get close to 30, especially for our coastal community. So we're going to have to watch on Friday. Certainly could impact some Friday night football games out there, which would not be great news. The bleachers certainly looking to be a little bit wet or damp for our Sideline 2025 game of the week. The Turquoise Creek taking on the Beachside Barracudas. Looking to be at least a few showers around for that game Friday night. And of course, Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner and I, he'll break down, or the two of us will break down the entirety of the high school football forecast for this coming week, the college football forecast for this upcoming Saturday. You got Georgia, you got Florida State, all playing big games at home this weekend. We'll break that down tomorrow. And then, of course, you see it right there on the screen. Next Monday, kickoff Monday Night Football over at the bank between the Jags and the Chiefs. Looks like there could be at least some rain, perhaps a few isolated thunderstorms possible earlier in the forecast. Currently have at least the rain icon on there. We'll watch it and have more updates for you coming up at First Coast News at 5 o'clock with Lewis Turner. Until then, I'm meteorologist Ross Mumal. Take care, folks.